Sam, good to see you.
Sam,
See you.
good to see you too.
This is my dog Ziggy.
Love Ziggy.
Okay. Hi Ziggy. You're gonna have to bear with me here. I brought some things to just get this started. So
Okay.
I mean, no surprise. This is my original copy of For Determination on vinyl, purchased at Lyle's Place in Victoria, DC, where I grew up. When it came out, I was 13 or 14. That's one. I got the remaster of Soldiers Misfortune. That just came out.
And I did not come out on vinyl when it was released.
No,
It was only on CD.
I know that because I bought it on cassette when it came out in 1990s. But check this out. So when I was 16, I took over the only all-metal radio show in Victoria. So Overkill Radio, which was at the University of Victoria, was run by John Hercock.
I know that name.
You would know that
Yeah.
name because he was close buddies with the Armorous guys.
Okay.
So Rick and Mike Sudar and all those guys, they were tight with Hercock. Anyway, me and my buddy Jordan Clark took over Overkill Radio, which meant that we just became obsessive tape collectors. So check this out. I have a dumped copy of the show at the concert hall with Slayer in '86.
I might have one myself somewhere.
So that just made the rounds. Like it was like
yeah.
somebody taped it off, somebody taped it off, somebody taped it off.
I'm here, Ziggy. Don't worry.
I wanted to share that.
Nice.
I still keep this shit. I don't know why. Okay, last, and then we'll get to the interview. So I want to show you something hysterical. So I went to an alternative elementary school in Victoria. Every month we had what were called booklets. Once I got to around age 10, I started to decorate my booklets, right?
Venom, Celtic Frost. Oh, and he's got the sacrifice.
Wow.
Yeah. That famous shot that we did at Brian's place.
Yes.
What I always point out to people on that shot is like, I go, look at the background. There's 4 buildings in downtown Toronto and the tower.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah. So you guys, to me, were my favorite Canadian metal band growing up. Like hands down. I loved Voivod. I loved Annihilator, Razor, Exciter, all of it. But you guys, to me, and I know we'll get into this comparison because I know it's a mixed bag. You guys were the Slayer of Canada. I mean that from like a quality riffing stylistic standpoint. Like legit, like those first 3 albums, especially Soldiers of Misfortune, like the riffing, the songwriting, the sense of melody that you guys were bringing in, like that's what I heard. That's why we're finally doing this
Yeah. Well,
a million years later.
that's a pretty cool story. I mean, it's amazing that you kept those. Yes. Grade 7 Sam. He knew what was going on.
Paint a picture, musical, otherwise, of like Scarborough when you guys were growing up. Like if you were to close your eyes and describe it to someone who wasn't there, how would you describe it?
I look back maybe before high school. I was into metal, obviously. You know, I was into like Ozzy Osbourne, Judas Priest. I guess around the time when maybe Dire of a Madman, Screaming for Vengeance, Blackout, Scorpions, like that kind of era, that's when it really took hold of me. You know, Van Halen and all the stuff that's on your books, right?
Yeah. Early 80s.
But I was always looking for something a little faster. Now, Scarborough, there wasn't like, I know people look back and think, you know, Scarborough was this big metal, you know, metropolis, but it really wasn't. You know, when I was in high school, people like Joe Rico and I, we were looking for the heavier kind of stuff where, you know, the regular rock people that would, you know, maybe tune into the radio and, you know, their Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd kind of stuff, they couldn't really relate to what we were listening to. People like us were on the outside. There's a store in Scarborough called Star Records. Now, we would go to the record peddler usually to get records, but there's also Star Records in Scarborough on Eglinton. You know, back in those days, there's no domestic distributor of metal albums that, you know, not ones that we were interested in. And so we'd have to get imports, and Star Records stock those. So sometimes we just go in and just look through them.
Yeah.
You know, then once in a while we had a bit of money you know, we'd buy a record or two.
Small scene.
Once in a while, you'd connect with somebody, like you'd just be waiting for a bus and someone would be wearing a Motorhead shirt and you'd say, hey, because you'd never see that, right?
Yeah.
There's
I know.
not really people around that were into that kind of stuff. I'm sure you probably had a similar experience in Victoria. Eventually, you know, we talked about let's get a band together and pop.
And with you, Gus, like, was it kind of the same?
Rush were a big thing for me coming out of early 80s. I really never gravitated towards maybe playing drums at all. Maybe 82, 83. So then I was junior high and I was listening to Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, stuff like that. All the stuff that my dad and my uncles introduced me to. And then Maiden became a big thing. I think the videos on Much were a big influence on me because that's when I met this one guy in high school, Randy Taylor. And man, he was into Venom. Like he had a Venom patch on before anybody. And he started introducing me to a lot of first Metallica record I found was Ride the Lightning. That for me was, when I heard that stuff, I was like, yo, this is the heaviest stuff I've ever heard. And then it just progressed after that. The first Slayer record. I love Metal on Metal, Andal, Locally Here. So all those videos were a huge impression on me. And then I'm just practicing, learning my craft, learn how to play drums because I've never played in a band. And then,
Your dad did.
yeah, no, the dad had the gear and stuff. I spent a lot of hours, a lot of time. Like mother let me go. They never complained about, you know, the 10 hours some days, sometimes 12. I'd be down there all day playing.
It's interesting because, like, growing up in Victoria, BC, you sort of inevitably feel like you're isolated from everything because you're on an island. Like, you go any further west, you fall in the Pacific Ocean. Toronto felt like Mecca from a distance, right? Because you'd hear about, like, Brian Taylor, the record peddler. Of course, when you're a teenager, like, you romanticize these places, right? But hearing you guys talk, like, it was also kind of small and kind of organic in a way, right?
It was like that because I remember we felt the same way because, you know, when we were discovering, you know, Venom and, you know, Kill 'Em All and that stuff, like at that time, none of these bands were coming here.
No.
You know, but different from Victoria, we would get like Iron Maiden, we would get, you know, Priest, these bands, but I don't know what happened, but right around when we first started playing shows, Slayer was playing at Larry's Hideaway. Then Exodus was playing. Then Merciful Fate was playing. And all of a sudden, these bands started coming here. Snow White played.
Yes.
And Agent Steel.
Yes.
And, you know, it was finally happening.
What was the show that you went to as a teenager that you looking back is like the show that really like flipped the switch for you?
The best show I've ever seen was Judas Priest on the Screaming for Vengeance tour, Maple Leaf Gardens. I'd never seen stage presence like that before. And the performance was just incredible. You know, Halford had, well, he still does. He has the stage presence I've never seen in anybody before.
Like it.
He can just stand there like this.
Yes.
And the whole audience can't take their eyes off. No. He just has this incredible stage presence that no one else has.
Nobody has it.
The other show I remember, this is the first big concert I went to. I think I was 14. It was Ozzy on the Diary of a Madman tour.
Wow.
I couldn't wait for this. I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan. Randy Rhoads died.
Yeah, that's right.
So they rescheduled it.
Yeah.
But, you know, as huge of a Randy Rhoads fan as I was, got to see Brad Gillis, who, you know, had a huge influence on Joe and me.
Yeah. Yes.
He was the first guy, I think, that went really mental with the whammy bar.
Oh, yeah. Right.
That live album, that Speak of the Devil album, he did some whammy bar stuff that not even Eddie Van Halen had done at the time. And so that was cool, too. But
For you, Gus, is there an equivalent show?
Yes. I was lucky enough to see Ozzy, and my first concert in Toronto was Genesis Maple Leaf Gardens, November of '83. So my mom got me the ticket for my birthday. It was my 16th birthday, but she got me tickets for that, and then she also got me tickets for Ozzy in April or March of '84. Okay. So those two shows for me were completely massively influential. I remember when I seen the Ozzy show, which was Bark at the Moon. Rad opened that night. Rad opened that night, remember? And then I was sitting there. Carmen Appice was supposed to play drums for Ozzy because he did that record. And then all of a sudden, the guy come on the PA system and he said, "Carmen's not going to be playing for Ozzy tonight. We're going to have Tommy Aldridge play." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I'm going to see Aldrich tonight.
Speaking of the devil,
Speak of the devil. That was Tommy on drums.
Yep.
And Tommy also did all the live stuff for Ozzy. So for me at that time, massive influence. So that's 84. So I spent that whole year just falling in love with everything metal.
So you, correct me if I'm wrong, like you sound like you were into Rush and Genesis.
Yes.
pretty early. So you kind of always had a bit of a prog,
I had that.
which is going to get, when we talk about volume 6, like I'm hearing that stuff coming in, right?
Yes.
So anyway,
So you're asking about a metal show that was completely influential to me. Let me describe that to you. I went to that 85 January Metallica
The Lightning Tour.
Yes, the Ride the Lightning tour. I stood outside. I didn't have a ticket. I was hoping to get a scalper's ticket that night. Nobody would give up a ticket that night for that show.
I got it.
And then, yeah, I know you did. And I remember going home. I was completely blown away and depressed. I remember going home that night, and this dude come up to me. He goes, "Hey, man, here, take this." And he gave me a ticket for guess what band? Them. At Larry's Hideaway. At the end of March of 85.
wow.
I'm still not in the band. So I took this ticket, and as this influential 17-year-old kid, 16 maybe, I went down and I got into Larry's Hideaway because what was the main thing? That was the feature where
He didn't-
young, underage
anybody
guys
could
like
get
me
in.
could get in, right? I stood at the back of the room, and these guys came on stage, and my mouth hit the fucking floor.
Guys are cool.
I remember watching them play, and I was like, man, these guys are fantastic. And John was singing that night. You were doing mostly
I
playing.
sang one song.
Yeah, you sang one song.
So this is 85. You're not in the band.
I'm not
yet.
even in the band yet.
You don't get into the Metallica show.
And I get
But you get a ticket.
I get a ticket to
to
see these
Hideaway,
guys.
and you go and see them play.
I go see
You're
them
blown
play.
away.
I couldn't believe it. So I'm not even the band yet. I don't even have a band. I'm just the drummer from the West End.
Did you meet that night?
No.
No. Okay.
I had no idea. They had no idea who I was. I had no idea who they were. I get a phone call probably about 2 weeks after that. And it's these guys who had heard that I could play Slayer on drums.
Word travels fast.
Let me-
There weren't.
But how did you guys find out about me?
Okay,
I
well,
could never figure
here's
that
the thing. Like when we started, it was hard to find musicians that were into this stuff.
Totally.
Like especially, like Scott, Joe, and I, we're fully,
You guys were
into this, right?
Yeah.
But
Because you
To
didn't grow up
find
in
it-
short. You didn't grow up in Scarborough.
No, these guys had no idea who I was.
Okay.
yeah, so when you're looking for a drummer, no one knew like that fast, beat
Yeah.
on Kill 'Em All or Show No Mercy, whatever. No one knew what that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd get a drummer and say, okay, play to this. They wouldn't have any idea what to do.
No.
They'd never heard anything like that. We thought about, asking from some guys from some hardcore bands here. We ended up putting an ad. Actually, I remember on Q107, they had like some kind of musicians thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So somehow someone got us in touch with Gus and said, yeah, this guy's into this. Talked on the phone, said, hey, you want to come down and jam with us? Came down with his drums, set up. It was like within 10 seconds, we're all looking at each other going, yep, this is it.
It's like Getty and Alex with Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So when does Brian Taylor into the picture? Like Record Peddler? Were you guys going down to the?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
We were going down there buying our records, even just to go down there and say, "Hey, Brian, what's good?"
Yeah.
Once Gus was in the band, yeah, he asked us if we wanted to do a demo and stuff.
So you guys hadn't even done a demo at that point.
No,
No. Okay.
we had like recorded some rehearsal stuff, and here's our demo, and put it out on the tape trading circuit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we hadn't gone into it.
Get the cassette deck, play and
Yep.
record.
Yeah.
Put a towel over the
Yeah.
cassette deck. To
Yeah. It was a rattle mic.
that.
The mic's about that big.
Right now.
Yeah, we all did it.
Yeah. It's funny, you guys have talked about this for sure and how music changes and generations of music change, right? Like there was no one that was into this music. And that's why I love talking with you, because there's like a ground zero element to this conversation.
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like
Yeah.
this stuff was brand new. And my buddy, Kelly Nordstrom, dear friend, still lives in Victoria. We played in our first bands together growing up. I remember the day I went to a baseball tryout. I was 13. Yeah, it must have been just before then. And I'll never forget, I was walking across the soccer field that led to the baseball diamond, and I saw this guy with a back patch on and a baseball glove. And I'm like, I thought I was the only person that was into metal and played baseball and we're still friends. Like he had a hand-drawn, maybe I got it wrong, Kelly, sorry, like a hand-drawn Celtic Frost back patch, like the Morbid Tales.
Oh yeah, we all had to do that back then. There's no merch.
No, we all did our
no merch.
We all with a Sharpie like drew the logos on our jackets, right, as best that we could, right?
Yeah.
And my point to all of that is like it was so new. There was no one else. No. So finding a drummer that could play Slayer-ish was essential, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we tried and tried and tried, and it took a long time.
Yeah, then I tried out, played 2 songs. I remember I smoked then, so I went outside in the back, Scott's backyard, and we jammed 2 songs. And I said, I think I'm going home. He come out, he goes, no way, Gus. He goes, relax. He goes, don't worry, man, you're in. He goes, they loved you. And then Rob come out, he goes, we love what you did, and we'd love for you to be in the band and stuff. And I remember he gave me that cut-off jean jacket with the Sacrifice fucking logo on the back band on, right? And I remember strapping
Same thing.
And I remember strapping it on, and I'm thinking, man, I've never felt bigger in my life.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I felt like I finally made a band. I'm finally going to do something. And then the speed at which we started doing stuff through April of that year until we got to recording Torment and Fire in September was historic, because the bands we played, the amount of shows we played at Larry's Hideaway, going into the
Everything happened really fast.
It happened so fast.
What were you jamming in those early days?
Oh, all the stuff that was,
everything.
Metallica, Slayer, Exciter.
Yes.
You know, I used to jam Violence and Force.
Yeah.
And what was great was you guys already had like a whole bunch of stuff already demoed and written. And I was like, man.
Well, it wasn't demoed. We had like rehearsal tapes.
Yeah. And then you give me that stuff, and I had all these songs. I'm like, wow, this is great.
And then we started writing.
And then we started writing, and then we had songs like every week we'd have a new song. The next thing you know, it was like 7 weeks, and then Brian's like, so you guys got demo stuff ready? And yeah, okay, let's go in. And then next thing you know, we're
we barely had the stuff.
You barely had it tight and barely had anything really concrete. And next thing you know, we're at Sonic, and
that studio, enough, the Much Music building. The old Much Music
299 Queen Street. Yeah.
It was in there.
Oh, wow.
It was on the, I don't know what floor it was.
Fourth floor. I mean,
there was way up there.
How did the songs come together in the early days? Like, was it you or Joe coming up with the riffs, basically, and then kind of piecing it together? Or how did it typically happen?
Who's got a riff? You know, kind of. And then how are we going to start it? Let's do some punches here. Okay, here's a verse riff. Let's do this. Then who's got another riff? Piece and stuff. And piece and stuff together. We'd have a tape deck. Press. We're never going to remember it, right?
No,
we'd record it, dub it for each other so we won't forget it. And that was the song.
Yeah.
Very cool. So listen, we're not going to have the time to do the whole Sacrifice story per se, but we'll kind of jump around a bit. So what were the aspirations? I mean, you guys are what, in your late teens, early 20s?
I think we were probably about 17-ish.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing, okay? Like, none of our families had money.
Yeah. No.
Right? When we first got together, when we first started playing our first shows, we didn't even own our own equipment.
No.
If you look in the back of Torment and Fire, I'm playing a black Strat copy. That was my brother's guitar. I didn't even own my own guitar.
Yeah.
I think we did have little practice amps that we jam with. We'd put them up at head level so we could hear over the drum.
I didn't own my own kit. I rented all my stuff, and then a guy from school gave me the 4-piece kit, and when I put it all together, I had a double bass kit that I played for a while.
Were you guys like, we want to be Metallica, we want to be Slayer, we want to be Judas Priest, or like what was the where was the dream
Our ambition
needle
when we
for you
first got
guys?
together? Let's play Larry's Hideaway. We want to play Larry's Hideaway. There was no like back then. I say this a lot. We could have never imagined that Slayer and Metallica would be this big.
No.
Yeah.
We could have never imagined it. They were so extreme at the time. we're passionate about the music, I guess, like everybody else was. Just somehow, you know, this music got big.
Oh, yeah.
The first time you heard Battery,
Yeah.
Oh, the guitar sound.
I couldn't believe how I think we just did For Determination, might have just recorded it. You know, we're like, wow, this album can compete with anybody right now. And then you hear Master Puppets, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, we were. Well,
Time to get back in the studio, guys. This is the thing, though. Like, this may just sound like a bunch of guys in their 50s, like, on a nostalgia trip. But, like, I think there is really something quite, like, precious here in terms of, like, you said it. It's like, it was brand new. There was no precedent. Okay, we had the Sabbaths and we had the Purples and we had the Maidens and stuff. But that very first wave of thrash and then death metal, it was so new. There was no precedent for it. And to your point, like, we had no idea that it was going to become what it would become. Like, if you had told me that, like, when I bought, like, Venom black metal, that this music, not necessarily Venom per se, but this music was going to become this huge thing, we would have laughed.
Yeah, I mean,
We
Black
would've
Metal,
laughed.
huge influential album for us. When I first heard Black Metal, I was like, this is the album I've been looking for my entire life.
It was so dark. Black metal came out when I was 8, so I would probably heard it for the first time like a few years later. That's why, like, for me, Puppets and Rain and Blood 86, I was 12. That was like the year that my life changed.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point on all that, we were on the front end of something that we had no idea that it was going to become not just a global phenomenon, but we're still here 40 years later talking about it. And there's been multiple generations of bands that have come up in the wake. And these thrash bands now that are celebrating that time, who are
weird,
like half our age.
There's bands that are like way more extreme than, you know, we ever were, that are pretty huge now too, right?
Yes.
But
course.
it's a different context today than it was then.
Very different. Okay, so I know you've talked about it a million times, but I have to get in the weeds on this because I was one of those kids who probably saw the Reanimation video on Much Music fucking 100 times. And I never got sick of seeing it. And I know you guys in previous interviews have talked about how huge that video was, at least within the context of Canada, if not beyond. Tell me about the making of the video. Can you put me in the room? Because it had the vibe that it had. Like, I can see myself as a 13, 14-year-old kid watching that video, and it had the vibe, the black and white, the slow-mo bits, and I'm a bass player, and Scott did the big woo at the beginning, like the run up the neck at the end. Like, I knew that shit like the back of my hand, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the making of the video. What do you remember of it?
First of all, we had a church booked. Brian Taylor, he somehow got a church book for us to do the video in. And I don't know what happened, if they caught wind of what was going to happen, but the day we were shooting,
it got.
that location was gone.
Yeah, it was gone.
So we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now, Brian, he had a pretty big place, and he said, let's do it in my apartment. So we're like, okay. So we set up our stuff, and I'm sure the neighbors weren't too happy about it.
Yeah, because I played it once.
Well, we played it a few times, Gus.
Yeah, but I only played it once. Sort of.
Yeah, we did it right in his apartment.
Yeah.
And I mean, I actually remember at the time thinking, why are we doing a video? Who's going to play this? You know, we're way too heavy to be played on TV.
Yeah.
You know, there was not really any videos of bands like us back then.
Not really.
And then it came out, and it was getting played all the time. And they used it for the intro for the metal show.
No, I could believe that.
You know, I didn't even know. You know, I turn on the TV, I'm like, wow. You know,
Yeah, I know. We're
what the hell's going on here?
Looking back now, it's a black and white music video shot in an apartment. Grainy, but it had a vibe to it. Like, and I think about these things because this is the world I live in, which is like putting things on screens. Like, everything was shot really close up. Like, it had a kind of real intimate vibe. Like, I didn't know this at the time when I'm in my front of my TV in Victoria as a 14-year-old. I'm not thinking about that stuff. But if I see it now, it's like, it's got like this immediacy. This is 87, 88. If we think about it, like, Metallica didn't have their first video
No.
until 88, 89.
Yes.
So My point is that you guys were kind of on the front end of a kind of more extreme metal band, but we weren't even using those words. But you guys had a video. Like
Yeah.
Slayer didn't have a video.
No, I think Voivod did. Razor did.
Yeah.
And there wasn't too many other bands. I actually remember when one came out, I was like, wow, it kind of looks like Reanimation, but they're not like
No, it's black and white
never
stuff.
seen it, but
I know,
it's cool. It's black and white. It's grainy.
Yeah.
Kind of same vibe.
Yeah. No, my point is that like not a lot of bands playing your music had music videos.
No.
But you guys felt the effect of that video.
Oh, absolutely. All of a sudden, like, you know, I'm walking down Yonge Street and some guy with a suit and a briefcase, like, hey, I saw your video, man. It's good. Like, you know, I'm like, what? What's going on here? You know? Yeah. All of a sudden,
We're playing across the country. And everybody knows the song.
stores on Yonge Street are bootlegging our shirts all of a sudden. And
Did it get rotation in the US?
I don't know if any of our videos got actual rotation on MTV, but they did get played on Headbangers Ball.
I champion you guys as the Slayer of Canada in an entirely positive sense.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's
Because-
absolutely cool with us.
You guys had like a melodic sensibility in the riffing. We can talk about like how amazing like the Haunted is and that, you know, that kind of thing. And this is leaning into Soldiers now. Because Soldiers was really quite a leap from the previous two records in terms of musicianship and composition. Especially the 3 tracks on the second side, right? It was like the songs are longer, there's mellow parts, there's heavier parts. These are more ambitious tracks. Talk to me about Soldiers. Like, how is conceiving and making that record different than everything you had done before?
Once we started going out on the road a bit and we're, you know, the 4 of us in the back of a van sitting on our amps and stuff, we were listening more to the stuff we grew up with, like Rush, Sabbath, stuff like that. Trouble, yeah, absolutely. So that kind of rubbed off on our playing. Like it was
big time.
you know, on our songwriting, As the World Burns, and then we had songs like also like Truth that started almost like Xanadu or something. There's that whole, you know, musical education, I guess, when we were younger.
Yeah.
That became part of it as well.
And for you as a drummer, Gus, obviously a chance to bring in the Genesis, a little traces of Rush and Genesis and that more proggy stuff, right?
A lot of my influences are starting to really push through the rock and roll sense of the stuff that I love. And we, as a band, were really starting to embrace that part of our love for that particular music, and it was really pushing through in our playing.
Yeah.
And I remember how long it took us to write it, how ambitious I felt. All those practices. There were some nights, man, we'd get there, we'd play some of that stuff, and it was just liquid, man. We were just kicking ass. I remember a couple practices, I said, man, if we could only have laid that song down tonight, it would have been cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's how good we were. Like I had some practices in Ray's basement where every hair stood up on me, and that's how tight we were. And that's how
We rehearsed a lot.
we played a lot of times, and we spent a lot of times in his garage hanging out. And then as soon as Wednesday come, all right, I'm on the bus. I'll see you guys around 4.
Yeah.
From Finch and Dufferin all the way to Markham Road and Shepherd, and did it religiously. That was a dedication.
Well, and that's I guess what I'm saying. You can hear it on this record that like it's okay to like pull it back for a bit.
Yes.
And then just fucking, because some of the risks when they come in on this record, you know, I've always had a bit of a Prada thing too. So the way you guys would set up some of those sections was just like fucking, it's heavier. It's heavier because you pulled it back a bit.
Yeah, when you started to realize, like, if you have like a really quiet part, and then
Yeah.
you
Punch
know
in
that
the face.
hammer comes with the guitars and the bass drum and the cymbal. It's
Everything,
you know, adds a bit more. Yeah.
I love it when we breathe, though. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing about us. Our songwriting from that point on, we were able to take breaths, and yet still, when we come back in, we're gonna stomp you in the face when we come back in and give it to you. That was the intent then, and it's still that way today. I think when we play.
And how had like the venues you were playing, the sizes of the audience, like by the time you get to like touring this record, like where are you at now?
Oh, it's completely different.
Yeah.
We could play literally anywhere in Canada.
Yes.
We toured right across the country.
All the
And
time.
everywhere we went, it was
Just getting better and
so intense. It was amazing. And the crowds were just crazy.
insane.
Is there a peak moment for you guys, like a peak memory from that chunk of years up to Soldiers? Like maybe it's the first time you played Larry's Hideaway with Herrenvolk. I don't know, or maybe it's the concert hall with Slayer. Is there a moment or two which you cherish the most?
I still remember when we play our first big show was at the Spectrum in Montreal. It was a festival. I know Speed Limit week.
Oh yeah.
And Torment and Fire, I think, just came out. And never forget standing on stage and the guy's like, "You guys ready?" And we're like, "Yep." And I'll never forget.
Remember that when they opened the curtain?
There's people from the front
Front
to the back, arms up, and I was like, "Wow!" Like we froze for about 2 seconds
I froze.
before that count went in, and it was like nothing we'd ever seen before. That moment, I'll never forget.
I'll never forget that too.
Same for you guys?
Yeah, that was I'd say like the fuel pushing us forward to have more of that and to be able to play rooms like that.
Seeing our first window display at the Record Peddler, that was pretty
That
cool.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's moments like that for sure with us.
Okay, volume 6. Good job.
Thanks.
Some fucking good fucking riffs on there. There's goosebumpy shit for me. It's heavy. Where does volume 6 come from for you guys?
There was nothing serious. Like we didn't have any plans, right? We'd talk amongst ourselves at some point. Maybe we'll do another album.
Maybe.
But it was sometime around 2017. Yeah. I'd written Comatose and I wrote Missile.
Yeah.
I can tell when a song's working if I go back and listen to it over and over again once I have it demoed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm gonna let these guys hear it, and everybody heard it, and they're like, "Yeah, these are good. Let's go."
Yeah.
So that kind of gave us a base. Our plan at the beginning was maybe we'll do a single, maybe we'll do an EP.
Yeah.
Doing a whole album is a lot of work. When your band is not your full-time job, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Kept writing, and pandemic hit, dried up everybody's creativity. It was difficult for us to rehearse.
Do anything.
Actually, before the pandemic, we were starting to make some progress, and
Yeah.
we were talking about going to the studio,
Yeah.
and then we couldn't rehearse anymore.
Yeah.
Studio was closed.
Well, we have maybe 4 songs.
And then I think it's just having no life experiences. You just sitting at home, not much to do.
Yeah.
Didn't really spark much creativity, I guess.
Right.
As time went along, that did come back. And
Yeah.
songs came.
I mean, the bulk of the writing I found came more in 22, 23.
Yeah.
Just after the pandemic, you're like, and you started giving me more songs. And Black Hashish was given to me in demo form. I could have swore you gave that to me in 15. And we fell in love with it, you and I.
Okay, I wanted to add, so that song in particular, like, that's a different kind of thing for you guys. Rush is coming in there. You guys were trying some different stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think when I had about half the song written, I was saying to Gus, I go, I don't know, man, is this a sacrifice song? And then we were just like at the point where like we both love it. Fuck it.
Yeah,
this
don't
is
care.
a sacrifice song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
still
do it.
us, but let's do
So
it.
I kept working on it. And,
Yeah. And it was always in the background. And
Yeah.
yet Watts and Rico had really no idea what we were doing yet until we actually got together and then played it for them.
And Lunar Eclipse too. It's like a short thing. It's a little more. There's a more space there. It isn't just like like hammering at it, right? So
Yeah.
some different things.
we're big on space and songs. Like there doesn't, notey riffs are great. Like we're Thrash fans, right?
Yeah.
We all love notey riffs, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to have some riffs that are not so complex that
Yeah.
can work into the song with those notey riffs.
Yeah.
That kind of give, a bit of attention.
So, what happens next? What's the plan?
There's no plan. I don't know if there's ever been a plan.
There's never been a fight.
There's never been a plan. Like we didn't decide to do this album and go, okay, we're doing this album. We're going out on tour. We're going to do this. We're going to be the biggest band in the world. It's not like that with us. We have lives, we have jobs. It's in our full-time. Sacrifice is not our full-time job. So we're just doing this because, we love it. We've known each other since we were kids. When we play, it's a good opportunity for us to see each other. And yeah, there's really no plan with Sacrifice. Whatever happens, happens. And whatever has ever happened, that's just the way it went.
Maybe that's the best plan.
Could be. Could be.
Well, listen, guys, this has been a real treat. Sorry it took, the better part of 40 years to get here. or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Torment and Fire is 40 years next year.
That's crazy.
To us, it feels like, 5 years ago, right?
Well, that's a good thing.
40 is a big number. That I know.
Yeah.
And I think about our journey and how far we've come and how many shows we've played and the quality of the shows. Ever since we've written this album, usually I get sick of our stuff. It don't take long after we recorded. I haven't been able to do that with V6. And I still put it in every day and I listen to it in different formats, whether it be on Spotify or hard disk. I can't believe it's us at this age playing that good. I've never been more proud of something I've done.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever been happier with a record.
With a record, yeah.
I think a lot of bands
Every
record an album. There's always parts on it where you're like,
Yeah, you
wish I didn't do that there or something.
yeah.
But this doesn't have that.
I don't
anywhere.
There's not one song on this that I hate, and I love playing them all.
Well, for the kid that put this on the back of his school booklet, thanks for all the music.
Oh,
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having us, Sam.
Yeah.
Seriously amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.